Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Accreditation Station. Today, our guest is Chris Hansen from Comtex. Hi, Chris. How are you today?
I'm well. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Great seeing you.
Nice to
Chris,
see you.
we're just going to ask you some questions about HLAC. I guess the first question I have is, how has being HLAC accredited benefited Comtex?
You know, with everything that's gone on over the last 2.5 to 3 years, obviously that the level of concern at hospitals of getting hygienically clean linen, how it's handled, how they receive it has increased significantly. And I think this is another backstop, another piece of information and accreditation that allows them to feel a little bit more comfortable with who their providers are.
And on that note, so why is being accredited so important to the laundry and to those end users?
I think with the accreditation today, there is a brand to, right? There's a brand to HLAC at this point. It's well known. It's almost expected with our customers. You know, there's bids that require it. But the brand today, I think, gives hospitals that sense of security that linen is handled properly on a consistent basis, right? That they're going to get hygienically clean linen, that they're dealing with a laundry that is more than somebody that could go out and afford to buy a washer and a dryer. And I think that's a big piece. And that brand, I think, continues to grow. So I think that's an important piece for all of us.
Yeah, I think it gives more legitimacy to the process control that laundries do have in place.
It does, and we all know that there have been issues at laundries that have not provided the right product for patient care. So this is one of those things that, you know, everybody has to have those policies in place to make sure we're doing it right.
Now, over at Comtex, I'm sure, like any other laundry, I'm sure what were the differences that you noticed before accreditation and after going through the accreditation process? What were some of the changes you see internally within the organization?
So for me at Comtex, I've been here 5 years, and Comtex has been accredited obviously since I got here. They've been accredited since they opened, and I think that was wise. The laundry I was at in California was actually the first one to be accredited in California. And I thought about that question. There were some significant changes that we went through. If you look at just the first time you go through it, all the things that you do that have been done that really don't fit with hygienically clean linen, having a porous surface to do work on, right? Cart wash are disinfecting surfaces. Just the policies in place to make sure that you can get the product out and you get it out right. And so if I think back to that, you make a big step forward when you decide to become HLAC accredited.
And on that note, Chris, don't you think that also affects your relationship with your hospital partners? I mean, how has that relationship changed now that you are accredited?
Well, you know, again, I think it gives them more of a sense of security when they have JCO in the house. You know, your HLAC certification is part of their packet that they hand them when they're talking about linen or talking to the linen department. And that gives JCO puts a lot of weight behind that as well, because they ask for it and want it.
Right. So now, Chris, you know, interestingly enough, you've worked for 2 laundries that have gone through HLAC accreditation. So what advice would you give to someone that's considering HLAC accreditation?
My advice would be do it as quickly as possible. There's work up front, there's some heavy lifting, but all that accreditation does is make you better. And if you could look at your plant or take pictures of your plant pre-accreditation, and the day of or the day after or a month after, you will see the difference if you're paying attention to what you're doing. There's a difference in how your plant looks. And what used to be acceptable as our plant looks good, we're tour ready, pre-HLAC and post, is a difference between night and day. And when you can have a plant that people walk through and they comment and say, this is a really good looking plant. This doesn't look like a 15-year-old facility, or it doesn't look like a 10-year-old facility. for somebody like myself, that feels good, right?
It really does. It really does, because it gives you some validity over the over all the processes you're following to make it look that good. And there's a lot of work involved, and you are correct. I think every time, you know, I speak personally, like you said, exactly what you said. Every time you go through one of these, you come out stronger, you come out better, you come out more consistent on your process, you make your process better. So, and the more times you do it, the better you get every time.
Exactly right. Practice makes perfect. And when
It really, really does. It really, really
important
does.
to you, it's important to the people you work with, and that makes us a better laundry. And certainly having it, and those that don't, you know, I feel like we have an advantage. And I think that shinier penny matters when it's coming right down to the very end and making a choice.
I agree, especially, I mean, going through that pandemic, it certainly was nice being accredited, just to know, you know what, we already have all this stuff in place, where some people were starting to play catch up. So it was a good learning curve on the importance of it during that phase.
Yeah,
so
it certainly helped us to be better positioned, I think.
Yeah. So Chris, you've heard, I guess, about the new 2023 standards that are coming up, and there's going to be more focus on hygienically clean linen and less on items such as the wonderful eye wash station that everyone has heard about.
We've got a bunch of them.
I know, we all do. We all do that. How do you feel about the changes and how it's going to impact laundries and the accreditation process?
And I think it's important, right? I mean, I think that HLAC needed to be more outcome based rather than checking a box based accreditation. And I think it's a huge step forward, and I think it's the right way to go. And so you'll spend more time focusing on product and delivery and quality than, you know, am I 10 seconds away from an eye wash? And those things are governed by other requirements.
Right.
It's
right.
So I think.
So you feel really good about those changes, that you're going to be able to focus on hygienically clean and not all these other things that, you know, and I that's a general feeling out there that, why am I worrying about that when, you know, I got OSHA looking after that?
Absolutely. And I think it's better for the brand, right?
Yeah.
It just moves it forward, just like anything else you're doing, right? You improve.
So in your view, then, the 2023 standards are a positive change in the right direction for HLAC and for accreditation.
Oh, it's extremely positive. I actually tried to look at some of them this morning when the email came out about the changes, and I got a chance to read it. I really spent very little time on it, but I'm excited just with the content of the email without even looking at what the new standards are.
Well, Chris, you've provided a lot of very insightful comments. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the accreditation process or your experience with HLAC?
No, certainly I would recommend it. I think that in looking back on the inspectors that we've had, they are well trained. They come in, they're not looking for a gotcha moment, right? They're coming in to say, here's a standard that we might not be meeting, or what are you doing with this, and how does this look downstream? So that part I think is relatively pleasant as well. It's not somebody coming in looking for you to fail or point out what you're not doing well. And it's more comfortable after you've gone through it a time or two. So I would really recommend it.
All right. Well, thanks very much for your time, Chris. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you about this and all of your insightful comments into the accreditation process. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
You as well. Thank you.